right, so I saw A Quiet Place, day one. Let's talk about it. As soon as I stop crying, we can talk about it. Why am I so emotional? The aliens look like dead flowers. Directed by Michael Sarnowski, stars Lupita Nyong'o, Joseph Quinn, Alex Wolff. Literally been watching this man on the big screen since Amistad, and I'm still not confident in how to pronounce his name. Djimon Hounsou. So this is the third film in the Quiet Place film series. I don't think you can quite call it a franchise just yet. But the first one, part one, came out in 2018, part two in 2020, and now this one in 2024. I watched the first two to kind of prep myself for this movie. Unnecessary. You do not need to watch the first two in order to watch this one, because this is the prequel. That's why it's called Day One. There is nothing those previous movies can tell you that is necessary information in order for you to understand what's happening here. So, if you, like me, hadn't seen those first two movies, I've seen them now, but if you haven't seen those first two movies and you're interested in seeing this one, you're good. Now, if you have seen those first two movies, there are some elements, plot points within this prequel that you're going to pick up before the characters do, and it makes it a little interactive. At least I thought so. My question for you is, what are your expectations? If you're going into this expecting this to be as good as the first or second one, I think you're going to be a little disappointed, because there are certain things that first movie did that were just so unique and brilliant. You can't replicate that. You can only do that one time. You'll never be able to do it again. And I think they learned that in the second one, where they had to switch gears a little bit and expand it. Now this one, we expand in the way of setting. We're in New York City now instead of Millbrook, New York. So it's a much bigger setting. It's New York City, which is just loud and almost, if you've ever been to New York City, it almost feels like it's never ending. So New York City is just loud. It never sleeps. It's noisy and it's large. We're not in a small town setting anymore. We're not in the woods. We're not in the mountains. We're not in farmland. It's a concrete jungle. So our setting is different. It's vast. It's large, but we have done away with what that second film did, where they expanded the cast and we've shrunk it down. It's interesting how we start with what seems like a large cast in the beginning and then we shrink down to two. So I think we get the best of both worlds here. We get that shrunken cast, which I think is one of the things that made the first movie so good, but we also get a large playing field, which almost makes the game impossible, if that makes any sense. Now, the pacing in this is a little bit slower. At times, some of the scenes felt like they were just running a little bit too long, but it matched the mood of the film. Now, you might be irritated by that slowness, but for me, I felt like the movie just really just took its time. Now, this isn't like jump scare, scary movie. This is the emotional kind of scary movie. This is the kind of movie that like hooks into you and just goes whoop. And it's intense from beginning to end, gives you a little anxiety. Now, I've said this I don't know how many times. The secret to horror movies is character development. It's character development. You've got to develop your characters. Create characters that your audience will, in a sense, fall in love with, so that when things happen to them, you care. And it ratchets up that emotion, because horror movies are all about provoking certain emotions, right? And the best way to do that is character development. And damn, did they do the damn thing. If I had to name what is the best thing about this movie, Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, their relationship, so to speak, in this movie, their bond, the way they work off one another, the unfolding of their characters. Now, they've been running press for this movie for a couple of months now. It's been a while. And when they're on press tours together, they're very close. They're very touchy-feely. You can tell there's a relationship, a bond there. And if you've really been paying attention to their press tour, you're almost invested in that relationship. And let me tell you, that's marketing genius, because that's the heart and soul of this movie, is their relationship, as short-lived as it is. Their relationship is the heart and soul of this movie, and you get to know her first and her story. She's a cancer patient. She's in hospice. She's dying, and she decides, to agree to go on a day trip to the city for a show, and that's when disaster happens, and then she meets him, and he won't leave her alone. He decides, wherever you're going, I'm going. And it's interesting that she is on death's door. She's kind of waiting for death to happen, and he's afraid to die. And it's like he sees that strength in her and he latches onto it. And he makes a decision that whatever happens, he's going with her. And she's weak, right? She has cancer. She doesn't have her meds, and she's pushing through, and all she can think of is like, I want to go home. And home for her is back in Harlem. And he needs to go to safety, which means going to the boats, which is on the other end. And I cried. No, I didn't shed tears. I boo-hoo cried. I had to sit in the theater for a moment before I left and just calm myself down. I was so invested in these two human beings that when we got to the end, I was inconsolable. Such brilliant writing on their part. Just the way their characters are designed, the way we watch her kind of relax and soften up, and the way we watch him toughen up. But more important than all of that, there's carnage. Now, the carnage wasn't all up in your face, but call me drowning pool and let the bodies hit the floor because, dang. Also, I would love to do a study on post 9/11 disaster films set in New York City, just to see how many movies feature characters covered in debris, dust, and ash. The first movie that comes to mind is Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds from 2005. Now, there are a lot of images and memories from 9/11 that are just very traumatic, but there was something about the video and the pictures of people covered in dust and debris after the towers fell that was just... it stuck with you. And I'm wondering if that is kind of stuck in the cinematic subconscious. Because you see that kind of repeated a bit in different disaster movies set in New York. These people covered with ash. I don't know, I'm curious. Yeah, I love that. That was excellent. That was a lot of fun, but also very emotional, very human. Such a human movie. It's beautiful. God, that was a beautiful movie. I'm going to cry again. But if you do see it this weekend, highly recommend seeing it in a theater with a good surround sound and a theater that gets really dark. So IMAX, Prime, Dolby, anything like that. That's where you really need to be for this movie to really just kind of experience it almost 360. So I'm going to go home, eat chicken, and cry. But I like that.